Welcome to Core Concept HQ, where big ideas are simplified. Today's book summary is The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Feck by Mark Manson. So we are diving deep into, well, a true phenomenon, a book that really just flipped the entire self-help genre on its head.
It really did.
It tells us the secret to a good life isn't, this constant positivity, but learning how to deal with negativity.
And crucially, learning how to stop caring about things that just don't matter.
Exactly. This deep dive is a very deliberate, sometimes even abrasive, look at how our culture defines success and happiness.
And Kane. Manson argues that a lot of those definitions are, well, they're fundamentally broken.
So our mission here is to really navigate his argument, to redefine what actually deserves our limited time and energy based on a really honest look at our personal values.
And what's so fascinating is where he starts. It's not with some polished celebrity or, a Silicon Valley guru.
Yeah.
He begins with the story of a man who was, by any normal standard, a complete mess. The poet Charles Bukowski.
Right. For decades, this guy was a functional alcoholic, often unemployed, a womanizer.
Chronically depressed, constantly getting rejected by publishers. I mean, his day job was filing letters in a post office. His life was, on paper, a total wreck.
And any success he did find came really late in life, when he was well into his 50s.
Yeah.
And if you hear the typical motivational version of his story,
Oh, it's always the same.
it's always the same. He fought for what he wanted. He never gave up. He persisted. He tried.
And eventually he was rewarded. 6 novels, hundreds of poems. He's held up as this icon of grit.
But the real truth, the thing that connects to this whole philosophy, it's right there on his tombstone.
Yeah.
And it completely contradicts that narrative.
It does. The epitaph just says, don't try.
Don't try. That phrase is such a perfect paradoxical hook for this whole idea. I mean, how can the genius of a man who sold millions of books come from the decision to stop trying?
And that is the central question. It really cuts to the core of Manson's argument. Bukowski's genius, his success, it didn't come from some desperate need to be a winner.
Or to become a better person by society's rules.
Not at all. It came from the exact opposite. It came from his profound comfort with himself as a failure. He accepted the worst, ugliest parts of himself.
The drunkenness, the crudeness, all of it.
All of it. And he wrote about it with this brutal, unflinching honesty.
So he didn't succeed despite his flaws. He succeeded by embracing his flaws.
Exactly. He never tried to be anything he wasn't. The moment he stopped chasing that external validation, the writing became authentic. The success was just a side effect of his radical self-acceptance.
Not a result of some relentless self-improvement plan.
And that one story just perfectly illustrates the book's whole idea that true progress and happiness often come from the opposite of what we're told to do. It's about recalibrating your internal compass, not just trying to feel good all the time.
That sets the stage perfectly for the first big idea, which really gets at the engine of modern dissatisfaction. He calls it the backwards law. We live in a culture that is, it's obsessed with these extreme positive expectations. Be happier, be healthier, richer, sexier, just be perfect.
You're bombarded by it 204/7, ads, social media, you name it.
And Manson's critique of this modern positive obsession is just devastating. He says this constant focus on what's positive, on what you should be, it actually reinforces the reality of what you lack.
It's like a psychological spotlight aimed right at your shortcomings.
Right.
If you have to stand in front of a mirror and say, I am beautiful, I am successful, over and over, the very need for that affirmation implies a deep feeling that you're not beautiful or successful to begin with.
It's the pursuit itself that highlights the deficiency. It's like, truly confident people don't really feel the need to tell everyone how confident they are.
They just are. If you're constantly dreaming about something, striving for it, you're just reinforcing the unconscious reality that you are not that thing yet.
So the desperate attempt to be happy is exactly what's making you feel inadequate and, well, unhappy.
The irony is just lethal. The pursuit of the positive becomes a negative experience. And this leads directly into what he calls the feedback loop from hell.
I think this is one of the most brilliant concepts in the book. It just perfectly captures the neurosis of modern life. It's this mental quirk that only humans have. We can have feelings about our feelings.
Exactly. So you don't just feel anxious about a big presentation. You become anxious about being anxious.
Or you feel guilty about something, and then you feel ashamed that you felt guilty in the first place.
It's this emotional doubling down, feeling bad about feeling bad. And that's what creates this epidemic of neuroticism and self-loathing. It's like a self-inflicted torture.
And it feels so modern. Manson makes this comparison to, Grandpa's day.
Yeah.
And Grandpa felt awful. He might just thought, well, life's hard sometimes, back to work. He just accepted it as part of life.
But today, if you feel down for 5 minutes, the culture immediately tells you you're failing. You open your phone and you're hit with 350 images of people living these amazing, deeply fulfilled lives.
And you immediately think something is uniquely wrong with you for feeling normal human distress.
Right. And you feel like you have to fix it right now.
Uh-huh.
So how do you get out of that loop? It's not by trying harder to be happy.
No, the solution is the opposite. It's counterintuitive. You short-circuit the loop by radically accepting the negative feeling, by not giving a fuck that you feel bad.
You just say, I feel like crap today, and that's okay. Who cares?
And that simple act of non-resistance just disempowers the whole thing. The pressure just vanishes the moment you give the feeling permission to exist.
And that acceptance is the backwards law. The desire for a more positive experience is itself a negative experience, but
The acceptance of a negative experience is itself a positive experience. And that's where the philosophy really starts to take shape.
it's about consciously embracing those negative experiences as part of growth.
Precisely. If chasing the positive leads to negative outcomes, then embracing the negative can generate the positive.
What does that actually look like? It sounds a little bit like masochism. It's not masochism. It's just a clear-eyed look at the price of admission for anything worthwhile. Think about the gym. The experience is pain, exhaustion, burning muscles.
Right.
But pursuing that pain is what gives you better health. The failures in business, the rejection letters, that's what leads to knowledge and success. Being open about your insecurities actually makes you more confident.
So the good stuff in life isn't found on the other side of comfort. It's on the other side of struggle.
Absolutely. Everything worthwhile is won by surmounting the negative experiences that come with it. Any attempt to escape suffering, to silence it, it only backfires. The avoidance of suffering is a form of suffering.
And that brings us right back to Bukowski. His decision to stop trying to be a happy, successful writer.
That was him embracing the negative reality of his life. He just wrote it all down, warts and all. Pain isn't a bug in the system, it's a feature. To try and rip that thread out just unravels everything else.
That focus on necessary pain leads us straight into part 2, which is about accepting a really difficult reality. Life is an endless series of problems.
And this isn't meant to be cynical, it's a philosophical observation. He uses the story of the Buddha to make this point.
Right, the story is Siddhartha Gautama, the prince whose father tried to shield him from all suffering.
Built high walls around the palace, gave him endless wealth, beautiful women, a life with zero negative experiences.
And despite all that, the prince became profoundly miserable and empty.
It shows that even perfect external conditions can't protect you from the internal problem of human dissatisfaction. So Siddhartha sneaks out, sees real suffering, a sick man, an old man, a dead man, and realizes his life was a lie.
So he runs away and tries the opposite extreme, a life of total suffering and starvation.
And that failed too. He realized that suffering sucks, but it's also inescapable. Rich or poor, pleasure seeker or ascetic, life is suffering.
The Buddha's big insight was that pain is unavoidable. The only way to deal with it is to stop resisting it.
And the philosophical takeaway from that is huge. It's a reframe. Problems never stop, they just get better.
You don't hope for a life without problems. You hope for a life full of good problems.
Exactly. The problem of how to invest your millions is a much better problem than how to pay next month's rent. The pain is still there, but the quality is vastly superior.
And a good problem is one you choose, one that aligns with your values.
Yes. The solution to one problem, like getting a dream job, just creates the next one, managing the pressure, the new responsibilities. Life is this constant upward spiral of moving from one set of problems to a slightly better set.
And a lot of us get stuck in traps, like denial or a victim mentality.
Both are short-term fixes that guarantee long-term misery. And often, that denial is rooted in this misguided pursuit of happiness.
We're taught to treat happiness like an algorithm, right? If I get X, then I will be happy.
It's the promise of advertising, of social media, that happiness is a destination you can finally arrive at.
But it's the hedonic treadmill. You achieve the goal, you get that temporary spike of joy.
And then, within days or weeks, your baseline just drifts right back down to where it was. Our biology always needs more.
So if happiness is fleeting, what's the real function of our emotions?
They're just feedback mechanisms, that's it. Negative emotions are like the pain from a hot stove. They're a signal that something is wrong and you need to act.
And positive emotions are just the temporary reward for taking the right action.
Right. They're not meant to last. They're meant to motivate. But the big warning here is that just because something feels good doesn't mean it is good.
You can't base your life on emotional intoxication.
No, that's what 3-year-olds and dogs do. They base their lives on their current emotional state. Emotions are signposts, not commandments.
So if we can't trust the pursuit of happiness, and we have to accept pain, the only real path is to start defining yourself by what you will struggle for.
This shifts the whole focus. The easy question is, what do you want? Everyone wants to be happy and rich. That's useless.
The better question is, what pain do you want? What are you willing to struggle for?
That is the question that determines how your life turns out. If you want a great body, it's not about enjoying the end result. It's about whether you can learn to appreciate the pain of the heavy lifts, the discipline of dieting.
If you don't love that process, you'll quit.
And it's the same for being an entrepreneur. You have to be in love with the risk, the uncertainty, the repeated failures, the insane hours, not just the idea of owning a business.
Manson tells his own story here about wanting to be a rock star.
Yes. He spent years fantasizing about being on stage, the screaming crowds, all of it. But it never happened because he was in love with the reward, the applause, the fantasy. He was not in love with the actual struggle.
He didn't like the daily grind of practice, hauling gear in the rain.
None of it. He wanted the destination, but rejected the misery of the journey. Who you are is defined by the struggles you're willing to endure. The joy is found in the struggle itself.
Okay, moving on to part 3. Let's talk about why so many of us struggle to accept that necessary pain and instead cling to fantasies. It's this crisis of entitlement.
And Manson gives us this perfect character to illustrate it. Jimmy, the delusional startup founder.
Right. Jimmy is a professional deadbeat. He has this amazing veneer of self-confidence. He's always name-dropping, talking about his next big idea.
But in reality, he does nothing. He lives off credit cards, friends, girlfriends. But he has this delusional level of self-worth.
And anyone who criticizes him is just jealous or ignorant. It's entitlement completely disconnected from any actual competence.
And Manson argues this goes back to the high self-esteem movement from the 70s and 80s. You know, participation trophies, great inflation, telling every kid they're special.
The idea was that if you just raise self-esteem, you'll get better outcomes.
But the data showed the opposite. Just feeling good about yourself means nothing unless you have a reason to. The unintended consequence was entitlement, this belief that you deserve good things without earning them.
Entitled people are obsessed with feeling good about themselves. They avoid their real problems by inventing imaginary successes.
Which highlights what true self-worth actually is. It's not about reciting affirmations. It's the ability to look at the ugly parts of yourself. I'm irresponsible with money, I have a temper, and then do the hard work to improve them.
Entitlement makes that impossible because the whole idea is, I'm already great. So any criticism is a threat.
It's a total paralyzer. And this entitlement crisis gets amplified by what he calls the tyranny of exceptionalism.
The idea that statistically, most of us are average at most things, and that should be totally okay.
But the internet has completely warped that. We're flooded every single day with the truly extraordinary, the top 0.0001% of everything.
Wealth, beauty, success.
And it creates this huge psychological problem where people feel like failures unless they're doing something extreme, radical.
It's a comparison engine. You can't win. You see thousands of perfect filtered lives, and you don't realize everyone else is failing to live up to that standard too.
The paradox is if everyone were extraordinary, then by definition, no one would be. Being average used to be fine. Now it's the new standard of failure.
So what's the solution?
Radical acceptance of the mundane. The simple, boring truth that most of your life will be routine, and most of your actions don't matter that much in the grand scheme of things.
That sounds kind of depressing.
It does, but Manson argues it's like eating your vegetables. It lifts this enormous stress of perpetual inadequacy. When you let go of the need to be extraordinary, you can finally appreciate the basic, simple experiences of life.
A deep friendship, creating something small, just having a peaceful morning.
Exactly. Those things are ordinary because they're what actually provide meaning. The pressure to feel special is what crushes our ability to find real contentment.
So if we reject that external pressure, we have to replace it with something stronger, which means choosing better metrics for success. We need a way to decide what actually deserves our limited fucks.
To illustrate this, let's look at 2 real-life rock stars. First, Dave Mustaine, phenomenal guitarist, kick out of Metallica, went on to form Megadeth, sold 25 million albums, a huge success by any objective measure.
But years later, he was still in tears in interviews, calling himself a failure. Why?
Because his metric, his chosen value, was external. Be more successful than Metallica.
And since Metallica became one of the biggest bands in the world,
He could never win. His success was defined by someone else's shadow. The goal was external and uncontrollable.
now compare that to Pete Best, the original Beatles drummer, fired right before they blew up.
An unimaginable rejection. He fell into a deep depression.
But years later, he said he was happier than he would have been with the Beatles. He had to hit rock bottom, but he completely reevaluated his metrics.
He found happiness by prioritizing internal controllable values. A stable marriage, family, a simple life. He lost the external fame, but he gained internal peace. It shows that some values are just better than others.
So we need to separate the shitty values from the good values.
Yeah.
What makes a value system shitty?
They're usually external, uncontrollable, and destructive. Manson points out 4 common ones. First, pleasure. It's a false god. It just leads to anxiety and chasing the next high. Second, material success. It makes your self-worth dependent on volatile external things. Third, always being right. That prevents learning and growth.
And the fourth.
Staying positive, which is just a form of avoidance. It stops you from dealing with real problems because that would mean feeling bad for a minute.
All of those values seem to create problems you can't solve because they're outside of your control.
Exactly. Good values, on the other hand, are reality-based, socially constructive, and immediate and controllable.
Like what?
Things like honesty. You have complete control over that. Or a commitment to uncertainty, admitting you might be wrong. That promotes growth. Hard work, discipline, compassion. These generate happiness as a side effect, not as the direct goal.
And this focus on what's controllable leads to another huge philosophical shift in the book, the responsibility fault fallacy.
This is a big one. We all know the phrase, with great power comes great responsibility. Manson flips it. With great responsibility comes great power.
And the key distinction is that responsibility and fault are not the same thing.
Not at all, though we use them interchangeably. Fault is about blame. It's in the past. Responsibility is about how you choose to respond right now.
So you might not be at fault for getting laid off, but you are always responsible for how you react to it.
Right. If you choose to see yourself as a helpless victim, which might feel justified, that's still your choice, and you are responsible for the misery that follows. You give up all your power.
Manson uses his own story here about being cheated on. He was miserable for months, and he blamed his ex for it. She was at fault.
And that was factually correct. But blaming her didn't help him heal or improve.
No.
Things only changed when he took responsibility for his own emotional state. He realized, she was at fault for cheating, but I'm responsible for my life moving forward. He started exercising, meeting people.
And crucially, he started looking at his own role in that unhealthy relationship.
That's the painful, necessary step. He realized that if he kept dating someone with destructive values, what did that say about his values? His responsibility was to make sure he never overlooked those warning signs again. That's where the real learning happens.
It's the ultimate source of power. You regain agency. You stop being a passive victim and become an active architect of your choices.
The most extreme example of this is someone like Malala Yousafzai, shot by the Taliban, a literal victim, not at fault in any way.
She could have just said, I have no choice, and given up.
But she chose the opposite. She reclaimed her narrative. She chose her values. The point is, even claiming you have no choice is a choice. We are always choosing. When you accept total responsibility, even for pain you didn't cause, you unlock the power to change your future.
Okay, let's move to the final set of difficult but necessary values, starting with finding freedom through commitment and saying no. This really pushes back against modern FOMO, the fear of missing out.
Yeah, Manson talks about his 5 years as a digital nomad. He visited 55 countries, had all these superficial highs, but felt this deep sense of meaninglessness.
Which proves a really deep truth. Absolute freedom by itself means nothing. If you can experience everything, you don't really value anything.
We think more options means more happiness, dating apps, career paths.
Endless choice.
But meaning is only achieved through the rejection of alternatives, through a fierce commitment to one person or one place or one craft. It requires saying no to 1,000 other things.
So why is that rejection so important?
Because valuing requires scarcity. If I commit to my marriage, I am actively rejecting a million other romantic possibilities. We are defined by what we choose to reject. Avoiding that rejection just leads to a valueless life where nothing stands out.
So commitment isn't a restriction, it's a form of liberation. It frees you from the paralysis of endless choice.
Exactly. And this idea is central to having healthy relationships. Manson really critiques the whole Romeo and Juliet ideal of dramatic love.
He argues that kind of obsessive love is really just a mask for entitlement and poor boundaries.
Yeah, they were completely out of their minds. Unhealthy love is when two people try to escape their own problems through each other. You make me happy, so I need you.
Whereas healthy love is two individuals solving their own problems with mutual support.
And the difference is boundaries. It's the willingness to say and hear no. Poor boundaries are when you take responsibility for your partner's emotions or expect them to solve yours.
Like saying you can't go out with your friends without me because I get too jealous.
Exactly. You're making your jealousy their problem to solve. And in relationships, this creates these toxic pairings, the victim and the saver. But a truly healthy relationship actually requires conflict.
How does conflict build trust? That sounds backward.
Because the ability to say and hear no shows you who's there for you unconditionally and who's just there for the benefits. If you can say no and still be accepted, that's the foundation of real trust.
This willingness to be wrong leads to the next value: uncertainty and growth. I mean, 500 years ago, people were sure that California was an island.
Right. Certainty is the enemy of growth. We cling to our beliefs because they give us comfort, but they stop us from taking the risks needed for a better life.
The truth is, we don't really know if an experience is good or bad until long after it happens.
So we have to be in a constant state of doubt. Doubt about our beliefs, our feelings, our assumptions. Uncertainty is the root of all progress. The man who thinks he knows everything learns nothing.
So we have to be willing to admit our current values might be wrong.
And he gives us 3 questions to ask ourselves to stay in that mindset of growth. First, what if I'm wrong about this? Second, what would it mean if I were wrong?
Third,
would being wrong create a better or worse problem than my current one? The goal is always the better problem. By embracing uncertainty, you shift from the stress of being right to the joy of learning.
and finally, we get to the most profound value of all, the one that brings us back to Bukowski, the sunny side of death.
This came from a personal tragedy in Manson's life. His friend Josh died suddenly in an accident.
And that death was a turning point for him. Before it, he was lazy, irresponsible.
And after, he had this realization, if death is certain and there's no ultimate reason to do anything, then there's also no reason not to do anything.
It's nihilism flipping into total freedom. If nothing matters in the end, why spend your short life avoiding pain and discomfort?
To avoid pain is to avoid being alive at all. And he connects this to the philosopher Ernest Becker, who wrote The Denial of Death.
Becker's idea was that we humans are terrified of our own mortality, this death terror.
And to cope, we build what he called immortality projects. These are our values, our identities, the conceptual selves we build to feel like we'll survive our own death.
Putting your name on a building, getting famous, believing your political party will change the world forever.
These are all immortality projects. And Becker's bitter antidote was not to avoid the certainty of death, but to become profoundly comfortable with it.
Confronting mortality becomes the ultimate filter. It just obliterates all the trivial, fragile values. It forces the question, what truly matters? What is your legacy?
Death has to be the compass you use to orient all your other values. And that's what provides the final answer. True happiness comes from caring about something greater than yourself.
And that's exactly what entitlement strips away. It sucks all your attention inward, makes you the center of the universe, and makes every trivial failure feel like an existential crisis.
But the acceptance of death makes everything easier. It makes you realize how shallow most of our psychological torment really is. The realization that your time is short is what allows you to live with focus and vigor.
In conclusion, the subtle art is really about choosing which limited fucks to give. You save that precious energy for what is simple, immediate, controllable, and greater than yourself. True self-improvement isn't about feeling good. It's about prioritizing better values, which leads to better problems and a better life.
And the ultimate takeaway for you, the listener, is that you are already great. Not because of some superficial success, but because in the face of confusion and certain death, you continue to choose what to care about. Accepting your own fragility and averageness makes everything else so much simpler. As Bukowski wrote, we are terrorized and flattened by life's trivialities. We are eaten up by nothing. Accepting death makes life brighter because it gives us permission to stop wasting our finite energy on things that just don't matter.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget, at Core Concept HQ, we simplify powerful ideas to help you live smarter. See you in the next summary.